He was dressed in a tiny navy blue suit, walking hand in hand with his millionaire mother when he suddenly stopped, eyes locked on a barefoot boy sitting quietly on the sidewalk. What he whispered next brought the world around them to a standstill. "Mom, he's my brother." But how could a boy raised in wealth know a child forgotten by the streets? What came next will leave you speechless. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and like this video, and let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. Now let's jump into the story. The city gleamed under the afternoon sun, buildings standing tall like proud kings wrapped in glass. The streets were busy, filled with people in fancy clothes, honking taxis, and the distant sound of street musicians playing soft guitar tunes. 6-year-old Liam Dalton walked quietly, beside his mother holding her hand. He wore a small navy blue suit that made him look like a tiny businessman. His shoes were polished, his tie slightly crooked, and his dark brown hair combed neatly to the side. He didn't talk much, but he looked around with wide eyes, soaking in everything. Mara Dalton, his mother, looked every bit the wealthy woman she was, tall, graceful, and serious. Her heels clicked perfectly with each step, and her beige suit matched the purse she held with one hand, the other gently clasping Liam's. They had just left a grand charity event at the Royal Gate Hotel. There had been chandeliers, soft music, and lots of people talking about saving the world over glasses of sparkling drinks. Mara had smiled and nodded as she always did. Liam had stayed quiet as he always did, but something changed the moment they turned the corner onto Pine Street. Liam stopped. Mara felt a small tug as his hand tightened in hers. She looked down, surprised. "Liam?" she asked. "What is it, darling?" He didn't answer. His eyes were locked on something ahead. Something on the sidewalk near a trash bin. A boy. He looked older than Liam, maybe 8 or 9, but not by much. His skin was dusty and his ribs showed beneath his thin frame. His feet were bare, his shorts torn, and his shirt was missing altogether. In his hands he held a bent piece of cardboard. One word was scrawled across it in messy letters. "Hungry. Lily." Street bustled around them, but the world seemed to go quiet for a moment. Liam and the boy stared at each other as if they knew each other but couldn't believe it. Then Liam whispered, barely loud enough to hear, "Mom, he's my brother." Mara blinked. "I beg your pardon?" Liam's voice cracked. "That's Keel. He used to hold my hand when I had bad dreams." Mara stared at him. "Liam, you've never had a brother?" "Yes, I did," he said, louder this time. "Before you and Dad brought me here, when I didn't have this suit, when I was cold." Mara froze. Her chest tightened. She looked again at the boy on the street. The child looked up slowly, his eyes meeting hers. He didn't beg. He didn't flinch. He just watched them, calm but sad, like someone used to being forgotten. Mara tried to lead Liam forward. "Come, sweetheart, let's keep walking." But Liam wouldn't move. "No," he said, louder this time. "He's my big brother. He used to give me food, even when he was hungry too." A few people nearby turned to look. A man paused at a streetlight, glancing over curiously. A car rolled by slowly, the driver peeking out the window. Mara's face flushed. She tried to gently pull Liam away again, but he yanked his hand from hers, and then he did something that took her breath away. He walked toward the boy on the sidewalk. His small shoes tapped lightly against the concrete. The boy, Keel, watched him, blinking slowly as if unsure this was real. Liam stopped in front of him. For a second, neither said a word. Then Liam whispered, "Keel?" Keel's mouth opened slightly. His voice came out like a breeze. "Liam?" Liam ran forward and threw his arms around the boy's neck. The movement was quick, full of love, pure, fearless love. Keel didn't move at first. His hands hovered, awkwardly in the air. Then one hand gently came down to rest on Liam's back. He closed his eyes. Mara stood still. Her hand hung in the air where Liam's had been. Her heart pounded. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. This wasn't imagination. It was memory, and the worst part was she had no idea it existed. She remembered the day they adopted Liam. It had all gone smoothly. She and her husband had gone through a private agency. The papers had been signed, the forms completed. They were told Liam had been abandoned and briefly placed in a care facility. No one had said a word about another child. No mention of a brother. No mention of Keel. The moments stretched on as more people noticed the scene. Some slowed down, others stood still, but no one interrupted. Finally, Mara walked forward. Her heels clicked more softly now. "Keel?" she asked gently. The boy looked up. "Yes," he said, cautious but not afraid. "You know each other?" Keel nodded. "I used to feed him when the staff forgot, told him stories at night. He didn't talk much, but he'd always fall asleep next to me." Mara's voice trembled. "Why are you here?" "Alone." "They never took me," Keel said simply. "Said I had breathing problems. Said no one would want me." He wasn't crying. He wasn't asking for help. He was just holding his brother, a boy who had once held him back. Mara knelt down, her voice low. "He didn't forget you." Keel looked at her, unsure. She continued, "My son didn't find a stranger today. He found someone he already loved." Liam looked up at her with big eyes. "Can he come home with us?" Mara hesitated. The city noise returned, filling her ears with honking and footsteps. She stood up slowly and looked around. At the people, watching, at the dusty cardboard sign, at her son and at the boy who had lived in his past like a ghost. "I don't know yet," she said quietly, "but we'll figure it out." And as she reached for her phone to make a call she never thought she'd have to make, she knew one thing for sure. This moment would change everything. That night, Mara Dalton didn't sleep. The house was quiet. The city outside whispered with soft winds and the occasional car passing by. But inside Mara's chest, something loud and unsettled stirred, something she couldn't ignore. She sat at her dark oak desk, the same one where she reviewed contracts and signed business deals. Tonight, though, she wasn't thinking about clients or meetings. Her phone lay beside her, the screen black. In her lap sat a folded piece of paper, the adoption certificate they'd received when they brought Liam home 5 years ago. She unfolded it slowly, reading through the details like she had a dozen times before. Name, Liam, country of origin, confidential foster background, brief siblings, none reported. She frowned. None reported? And yet, today on a sidewalk in broad daylight, Liam had run into a boy who looked nothing like him and said, "He's my brother." Not "he looks like someone I knew" or "he reminds me of something." He said brother, with tears in his eyes and certainty in his voice. Mara felt the memory of the two boys hugging so real and raw, like something time hadn't touched. She reached for her laptop and opened it. A quick search led her to a list of contacts she hadn't looked at in years. Names of people from the adoption agency, legal contacts, and one name she hadn't thought of in a long time. Mr. Edwin Varney, retired, used to handle international adoptions through Dalton and Moore. She clicked his number and stared at it. It was late, very late, but something told her he'd understand. She called. The phone rang twice. Then came a soft, gravelly voice. "Hello? Mr. Varney? This is Mara Dalton, from the Dalton adoption 5 years ago." A pause. Then, "Yes, of course. Liam, right?" "Yes," she said. "I need to ask you something important. It's about the file. Was there ever another child involved?" The line went quiet. She heard him breathe in, long and tired. "Why are you asking that now, Mrs. Dalton?" "Because today my son saw a boy on the street. He called him his brother. Said they were together before. Said his name was Keel." Another pause. Longer this time. Then came a low voice, almost a whisper. "I remember the name." Mara sat up straighter. "You do?" "I wasn't supposed to say anything," Mr. Varney said. "Back then we were told to process one child only. The other had medical notes. Something about asthma, maybe more. They labeled him high risk. Most families don't want children with health issues. But they were together? Yes. Same intake week, same small foster unit. I remember one note that said, bonded pair, but separation recommended due to adoption eligibility. That's how they wrote it. Mara felt a chill in her arms. So they erased him? Not officially, but yes. His file was closed. The system made it disappear. Mara stared at the certificate in her hand. The words none reported burned like lies. Do you still have access to those files? She asked. I shouldn't, he said. But maybe, for the right reasons, I can find something. Please, she said. He's still out there. Alone. After the call ended, Mara sat still for a long time. The city outside didn't seem so quiet anymore. The next morning, Liam came to breakfast quieter than usual. He didn't touch his toast. He only looked at the window. Do you think Keel is okay? He asked softly. Mara reached over and brushed his hair gently. We're going to find out, she said. I promise. She reached out to her assistant, Tessa. Tessa was quick with a computer, sharp with details, and trusted like family. Within hours, she had pulled together everything from the original adoption agency's records, or at least everything they had been allowed to see. But something was missing. There's a gap, Tessa said, looking at the screen. From the first intake date to the transfer to the adoption unit. There should be records of who Liam was with in the foster center, but they're gone. Mara frowned. Or hidden. Tessa nodded. That too. Mara picked up her phone again and called Mr. Varney. He answered on the first ring this time. I found something, he said. One file, not complete. But there's a line that matters. He read aloud. Liam and Keel. Placed together. Shared room. Close companionship reported. Separated due to health clearance limitations. That's it, Mara whispered. But then he added. At the bottom, someone scratched out Keel's name in red ink. Wrote, deemed unfit, not eligible for placement. After that, nothing. He vanished from the system. Mara felt the words like a weight. They didn't just forget him. They erased him. Yes, Mr. Varney said, but your son didn't. That night, Liam came into Mara's study carrying a small drawing. It was two stick figures holding hands. One had a blue suit. The other had no shoes. This was us, he said, in the green beds. Mara looked at it for a long time. Then she reached for her phone again, not to call another lawyer. Not yet. She called someone else, a man she hadn't spoken to in months. Officer Jalen, a kind neighborhood patrolman who often volunteered at the shelter nearby. I need your help, she said, to find a boy. His name is Keel. The next morning came with golden sunlight, but Mara Dalton felt no peace. She dressed Liam carefully, though more casually this time. Just a soft sweater and jeans. No suit, no tie. Today wasn't about appearances. Today was about answers. Before they left, she packed a sandwich, an apple, and a bottle of water into a small bag. Then, taking Liam's hand gently in hers, she stepped outside, her heart pounding in her chest. They took the same route as before, turning the same corner near the bookstore and florist on Pine Street. Mara didn't know if Keel would still be there. She hoped, but she didn't expect. Liam walked faster than usual, almost pulling her along, and then, there he was, sitting on the same patch of sidewalk, legs crossed, cardboard sign resting beside him. Keel. He looked up, almost too quickly, as if he'd been waiting all night. His eyes lit up the moment he saw Liam, and Liam broke into a run. Keel, he called out. Keel stood up on shaky legs, unsure whether to believe it. Liam threw his arms around him again. You didn't leave. Keel hugged him back tightly, whispering, I thought maybe I dreamed you. Mara stood a few steps away, watching. Her chest felt tight again, but not in fear this time, in something closer to relief. Keel looked over Liam's shoulder and met her eyes. Hi, he said quietly. Mara stepped forward, kneeling to their level. She offered him the bag of food. I brought you something. I thought you might be hungry. Keel hesitated. Then gently he took the bag and held it in both hands. Thank you, he said. But I didn't eat yesterday either. I was scared. If I ate and you didn't come back, he trailed off. Mara's heart broke a little more. Keel, she said softly. Do you remember being in the care home with Liam? He nodded slowly. There were green beds. We shared one blanket. I gave him half my food when they forgot. He was really quiet. Didn't talk much, but he liked when I sang. Liam smiled. You still sing? Keel shrugged. Sometimes. Mara looked around. People were passing by, but none stopped. The city moved on like always. But she couldn't. Keel, she said gently, I'd like to bring you with us. Just for a little while. You don't have to say yes. But I want to make sure you're safe. And warm. Keel stared at her for a long time. Why? He asked. Because I should have asked about you 5 years ago, she replied. Because you matter, and because Liam never forgot you. There was silence. Then Keel looked down and whispered, Okay. Officer Jalen was already waiting when they arrived at the family's townhouse. Mara had called ahead, explaining everything. She could. He greeted them at the door, smiling kindly at Keel. Hey there, buddy. I heard you've had a rough few years. Keel said nothing, but stood close to Liam, who held his hand tightly. We'll keep everything legal, Mara told Jalen. No shortcuts. I want emergency placement, and I want to start the process the right way. Jalen nodded. We'll need some background. Anything he can remember. Keel looked nervous, so Mara knelt beside him. Just answer what you can, sweetheart. We'll do the hard work. They sat in the living room. While Jalen asked gentle questions, Liam brought Keel a blanket and a cup of warm cocoa. I don't know my last name, Keel said softly. I remember the lady with the long earrings. She gave us rice and carrots. Liam hated carrots. They laughed a little. Even Jalen smiled. Then Keel said something that made everyone quiet. They picked Liam. They came in and looked at us. But the man in the suit said I wasn't strong enough. Said I coughed too much. Jalen scribbled something in his notebook. That night Mara sat down with the results from Tessa's research and the notes from Mr. Varney. All of it pointed to one cruel truth. The boys were placed together, formed a bond, and then were torn apart. By a health note, a red pen, and an official decision that no child should ever have to suffer for. One document stood out, a scanned intake form with both boys' names listed side by side. Keel was scratched out with a note reading, Not eligible. Recommend removal from pair listing. That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. No second chance. But the system hadn't erased the memory from Liam's heart. And now, finally, Mara wouldn't either. 2 days later, Keel saw a doctor for the first time in years. The results were surprising. His asthma was mild and completely manageable with medication. There were signs of long-term malnourishment, but nothing permanent. He had been labeled unfit because of a treatable condition. When Mara read the report, her hands shook. Liam sat beside her, coloring with Keel. They had drawn a picture of their new bedroom. 2 beds, 1 rug, 1 window. Liam had written, Keel and me. I don't want him to leave, Liam said. Mara looked at them both. Then we'll make sure he doesn't. She contacted a lawyer the next day, started emergency placement, ordered a DNA comparison, not because she thought they were blood brothers, but because she wanted every record corrected, every lie undone. 1 week after that moment on the sidewalk, something magical happened. Keel laughed. It happened while Liam showed him how to play a game on the tablet. Keel fumbled with the buttons, lost terribly, and burst into laughter that echoed through the room. It was the first time Mara had ever heard it, and it was beautiful. She stepped out onto the balcony, breathing in the cold morning air. In the background, she heard the boys shout, Best 2 out of 3, and giggle again. For the first time in days, she smiled. They had found each other again, and nothing, no pen, no paper, no forgotten file, could change that now. The news came on a quiet Thursday morning. Mara Dalton sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea in her hand, the winter sun spilling through the windows. On the screen of her phone sat a single file, the DNA report. She took a breath and opened it. It confirmed what she already knew in her heart. Liam and Keel were not brothers by blood, but they had shared the same early shelter, the same cot, the same spoon when meals were skipped, and the same tiny, terrified world before being separated. Their connection wasn't written in genetics. It was written in memories and in love. The report included a phrase Mara hadn't seen before. Shared. Early environment, consistent attachment behavior, likely bonded pair. She didn't need the science to tell her. She'd seen it in their eyes. Liam never forgot, and Keel never stopped hoping someone would remember him. That afternoon, she made her decision. The next day, Mara stood in front of a group of reporters in a small, warm community hall. She hadn't planned to speak publicly, but the truth felt too big to keep behind closed doors. She didn't want attention. She wanted accountability. Liam stood beside her, holding Keel's hand. Keel wore a new sweater and shoes that actually fit. He looked nervous but stood tall, his fingers tightening slightly when someone snapped a photo. Mara stepped up to the microphone. "I want to tell you a story," she began, her voice steady. 5 years ago, my husband and I adopted a boy we believed was alone in the world. The records told us he had no family. We believed them. She paused. But 2 weeks ago, that same boy saw someone on the street, and he didn't see a stranger. He saw his brother. A ripple moved through the room, she continued. The truth is, the system that brought Liam into our home also erased someone else's chance. A child was labeled unfit, discarded by a line of red ink and a judgment made. On paper, not in person. No one asked if they were close. No one asked if they mattered to each other. She placed a hand gently on Keel's shoulder. "This is Keel," she said. "He isn't weak. He isn't unwanted. He is kind, brave, and strong. And from this day forward, he is home." The room clapped. Some people wiped away tears. And for the first time since Mara met him, Keel smiled wide, like he believed it was okay to feel happy. In the days that followed, Mara worked quickly. She filed all the paperwork for official guardianship. Her legal team requested that the agency's records be corrected. Tessa, her assistant, helped document every step, every signature, and every meeting. Nothing would be hidden again. She also made time for the boys to just be boys. They played in the backyard, built forts out of blankets in the living room, and argued over who got the last pancake on Saturday mornings. Keel struggled at first. He hadn't been in school, hadn't held pencils in a long time, but Liam helped him with everything. When Keel said he couldn't read, Liam said, "Then I'll read it to you." When Keel missed a word in a sentence, Liam cheered, "You got the first part. Let's do the rest together." Every morning they walked to school side by side. Liam told everyone, "This is my big brother." And Keel smiled like it was the greatest title in the world. On Keel's 9th birthday, the Daltons threw a small party at home. There was cake, streamers, and music. But the best gift came after everyone had gone. Mara handed Keel a wrapped box. Inside was a wooden frame. He pulled it out carefully. It was a photo. Liam hugging him on that very first day they found each other again. Below it, in gold ink, Mara had added a simple line. "You asked for food. You gave love. And now you are home." Keel blinked quickly and held the frame close. "This is the best birthday ever," he whispered. Mara kissed the top of his head. "You deserve many more." Months passed. Spring arrived with flowers and sunshine. Keel was officially added to the Dalton family registry. His nameplate joined Liam's at the front door. His face was added to family portraits. His drawings filled the fridge with color. He had a bed of his own, books of his own, a life of his own. But more than anything, he had a brother. Not because they shared blood, but because they had once shared a blanket in a cold room with green beds and empty bowls, and neither forgot. Their bond had survived years of silence, and all it took to find each other again was a single moment, a sidewalk, a memory, and the voice of a child who refused to forget the one person who once held his hand in the dark. Mara sometimes found herself standing at the doorway to their room, watching them sleep. They often ended up in the same bed, even though they each had their own. Liam would be curled up with a book half finished on his chest. Keel would be beside him, an arm draped gently across his brother. It didn't matter that they were once labeled differently. What mattered was that love didn't forget. Some families are made by birth, others are built by choice. But the rarest are made by memory, the kind that never fades, even when the world tries to erase it. And in the heart of a quiet boy in Taiwan, a navy blue suit, that memory had stayed alive until the day he found his brother again. Forever.